Welcome to another episode of Starseed Activations. So today we're going to dive right into the questions. So the last questions that we did from the last episode, we're going to redo them specifically because the last episode was very choppy. So this way, if you guys were there, we're just going over those questions because I didn't really like the audio on the last video, so we'll do it one more time. And if you guys who are here for the live, welcome Nancy, welcome Mary. Thank you guys so incredibly much for coming. And if you have any questions, just put them into the chat box and I will try and get to those as well. Excellent. So the first question was, how do we activate the 365 extra senses? My attunement is clairvoyance, which is seeing past the memory grids into the past and the future. Now, this is very, very important because each and every one of us as a human being, we all have the potential and the ability to see into the past and the present. So when we start to recognize that, we can see this scientifically. So it's 1,000% been proved on the planet. Now, when we recognize that we have precog abilities, that starts to allow us access into starting to manifest them in a higher frequency range. So let's break that down so it's very simple for everyone. Now, when we recognize we can see the future, then what we want to do is we want to start to call upon seeing the future. And so drop into the meditation. Tell your conscious mind to give you the information of what's going to happen in the next minute. Just keep it short and brief. So speak about the next minute, what's going to happen. And then close your eyes and see if you can sense it. Now, there's other ways of pulling this ability towards you, but usually doing things to start people is saying like flashcards or number cards, or we did this with Uno cards actually, now that he's drawing it to my attention. And so my children and I, we would guess what card was coming. And then you're guessing either the color, the number, right? And so what you're doing is, but you're trying to foresee it. The more and more you start to put your conscious focus and attention on that, it's going to actually will it into your manifestation. Every single extrasensory ability gets willed into our reality. And this is because where your focus goes, your consciousness expands that fractal of the holographic simulation. Now, what this means is, just imagine for 1 second, there's a war on your consciousness. And so what that will break that concept down. That means that your cell phone and technology and all these different advertisements and all this stuff, they're trying to get your focus. And why are they trying to get your focus? Your focus is very, very strong. And so the energy that gets cast out of your eyes, there's a whole thing about energetics in the eyes too. And we actually have the ability to shoot like Superman lasers, except it's just a high frequency, which can actually attune other people's energetic grids. So that's wonderful too. It doesn't mean you're going to have a real laser. It just means that you're sending energy out of your eyes. And there's different things that can be manifest by utilizing the focus of the consciousness. Now, just try doing this with any type of plan. Try doing this where you are imagining sending love and light out of your eyes, and try and do it to someone who's not looking at you, or even try and make them uncomfortable when you're staring at someone's back and see how it makes them feel. That making them uncomfortable is actually an emotion code. And so what you're doing is you're energetically casting something at another person, which attunes their senses. And then all of a sudden they're going to get an intuition spike. That's how the system works. It's absolutely genius because we've been doing it all along. We just had no idea that this is how it's done. The second that we become consciously aware, it's like removing a shade that's over your eyes and telling you that you can't do these things. So all of a sudden you're like, we've already been doing it. So now we just want to strengthen that manifestation by placing more of our focus onto it. So whenever we start to have a look at the extrasensory abilities, there's 365 total in the human body. These are spiritual as well as physical gifts. So some of the physical senses are things like sense of magnetism, sense of direction, sense of the truth detector, sensing if someone is telling you the truth. That's a very physically focused sense because we're here in the physical reality, and that sense triggers us in that reality in the 3D. Now, the spiritual ones would be more along the lines of astral projection, remote viewing, anything that you could do precog all that stuff is considered spiritual in its nature, because what you're actually doing is you have to tune in to the spirit to allow those senses to become enhanced. So we take our time and we baby step. Many times, each and every one of us, we have special attunements. An attunement is a magnetism to a particular sense. This is how the system works. It's wonderful. Some people have multiple attunements because their energy source or their soul frequency is very high. So they might have come from the angelic realms, the star people are saying. And when they drop into the physical body, they've already achieved such a high level of consciousness that their energy field is very vibrant, the star people are saying. So that vibrancy, everyone else around them can feel it. It's like they're more loving, caring, kind, or they radiate more love, or they're full of sunshine. We can see a glow or sense a light around them. That's their aura field or their energetics. And so these people, a lot of times they go through the hardest of paths. They get traumatized and all stuff happens. But that's because when they eventually release all of the trauma and the pain, it actually allows them to activate the extrasensory abilities to a high frequency. And that is because their energetic grids are fine-tuned from the higher level that they were once in. Excellent. Okay. Is it possible to be a starseed from 7th dimension or higher? Yes. And that tunes right into what we were just talking about, because you have to realize that there's actually an internship program right now with the extraterrestrials. And this is with the star people are saying it's about 95% of the extraterrestrial species do not allow their people to come here without being in some sort of physical form first. So if you're from the 7th density or higher, you had to drop in to say 5D in order to live as an extraterrestrial before being allowed to make the hike back down into 3. Because going directly from 7 or even 8 or 9 up to 12, by going directly from there straight into 3D was actually causing incoherence in the energetic grids, which then in turn was causing too much density for those soul forms. And a lot of times they actually got stuck in the reincarnation cycle here on Earth, which that's okay too, because everything is just an experience. Even if we do get stuck in the reincarnation cycle on Earth, which is fine, but if it does happen to us, it's okay, because in time we will eventually ascend back up. We always go up. Even if we cycle up and then we cycle down, and let's say we had a fall, which actually has happened on this planet multiple times, where the consciousness reaches a high level and then it falls. Now, this time, however, that's not going to happen because the star seeds are here. And there's also a solar flash that we are waiting on. And there's also an Earth kind of shift happening, in which what actually happens is most souls on the planet, the one who are souls, not the people who are soulless, because it's two different entities. The people who have an energetic light body inside of them, they're going through a process of either raising their consciousness or becoming stuck in the 3D reality. Now, in time, these two realities are going to shift into different timelines. Now, if you understand the way that the timelines work, there's timeline convergences. The timeline convergences happen every so often according to the zodiac shifts, which then in turn brings all the timelines back into one master timeline. But then, like a breath out, the timelines start branching out again. We all go back into experiencing our own individual realities. And then when it comes back down as a breath out, then all of a sudden, all of our realities start to co-create again as one master. And so when this process happens, there's eventually going to come a convergence in which those people who are not in alignment with 5D, they're just ever so gently going to be into a different frequency range of just the physical. That does not mean doom and gloom and destruction for them. That just means that they were on our timeline and now they're shifting to be on a 3D and we are shifting to be on a 5D. Now you have to realize 3D is always going to exist here. This is what the star people are saying. 3D is always going to be here because it is part of the holographic simulation. 5D is always going to be here because it's part of the holographic simulation. 4D is actually a half note. We're kind of in the middle of that right now. You can see a lot of chaos and confusion in the civilization. That's how you know that you're there in 4D. So it's like a half note in a frequency range, the star people are saying. Now, when we start to realize that this is the way the process works, and they're saying all up, each other frequency going up is still going to be there, 60, 70, 80, 90, all the way up until 12. And then you have the next octave. And then that octave has another octave on top, and it's never ending. So we start in this base reality because this is where our consciousness chose to be. However, when we go all the way up to 12, there's a level where we are touching into the source frequency and becoming all of everything in this current reality. And then when we reach a certain degree, it shifts again. And then we start from, it's basically like level 0, like an amoeba. It's like level 0 or crystal kingdom, but it's in a different bandwidth, he's saying, or different octave range. So just imagine for one moment, the attachments are in the lower octave range. So we call that the dark realm because it's underneath our feet. But the truth of the matter is, it's just connected to the dark matter realms. We have a dark matter Kundalini channel inside of us. So we too are connected to the dark realms. Now, this is why, and this is the primary reason we are able to feel emotion, and we're able to feel pain and suffering and trauma and tragedy. All of these different emotion ranges, they're tuned into the dark matter realms because it's dark, it's void of love. So there's one primary frequency that's coming down through each and every person. This primary frequency starts at the source frequency. It's a very high frequency, so it's very rapid moving. It's made primarily of light, but the light is so bright that we can't perceive it in this body, in this physical reality, even in the astral. You can't really perceive it. And so whenever we do go and have any sort of hallucinogenic conversation with like the source frequency or God, whatever terminology you guys want to use, it is broken down so that we can perceive it. So many people will perceive the person that, like Jesus Christ, they will perceive one of their archangels or whoever it is that you guys know and you feel safe with. Sometimes it's even your grandparents. When you have like a near-death experience, you may see one of your guides. And so, but if you were, let's say in the United States, you would see Jesus. If you were somewhere else, you may see Buddha. You may see someone else. So it all really depends on the individual's consciousness, because each and every person is an individual unit of consciousness. And that's what the star people call us. We're an individual unit of consciousness that is directly connected to the source frequency, which is known as God. And so whenever we start to make contact and communication with that source frequency, you're basically talking to the all information of all times, all love and care and kindness. It's very non-judgmental. Now, think about it. If we spoke to a supercomputer, a supercomputer is lacking emotions. Star people want to clarify, but just imagine if you're asking for information. All information is in that artificial intelligence or that supercomputer. So there's certain things that you can take away from having a conversation with it. The source frequency is all information, which is what the artificial intelligence is also tapping into. It's all information because the artificial intelligence is still connected to the source. It's one and the same. There is no division when we start to look at the energies inside of us. But the source includes emotions. And that's where it gets beautiful, because light is love. And so we always hear people say, I send you love and light. And that's because that light makes us shine brightly. It makes us light up. We glow because we have all this energy inside of us. We can use electricity to light a light bulb. And so we know these concepts. We understand this very basically. Now, when we start to talk about trauma, what happens when we start to experience trauma? We shrink. Many times people will hunch forward. They may even like scrunch up their body, and that's because they're in a trauma mode. If you ever see people doing this, right? This is actually a fetal position. That means that their neurology is turned on, their fight or flight systems are turned on. And so we need to start working with all the traumas to release them. Now, this is also, it's the fetal position, which is the reason why people go back into this position when they're severely traumatized. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind, because if you ever notice one of your friends get triggered and they start to do something like that, then you have the awareness, okay, your fight or flight systems are up. Let's come and do some breath work meditations, right? Let's try and open our hearts. Let's try and focus on something that we love. And let's try to just allow any toxic or trauma-based emotions to just discharge. And so when we allow the trauma-based emotions to discharge, what that looks like is like this: just allow the emotion to go where it wants to go. And so if you're feeling rattled or shaky or any emotion that is triggering you, like anxiety, just drop in, close your eyes, and speak to the body. You are safe. You are loved. I will protect you. It is okay for you to feel this emotion right now, and it is okay for you to release this emotion. We do not need to carry this emotion, but take your time. It's okay to allow the emotion to wash over your entire body. And then the second that you feel like it is discharged or it's done playing its course, then go back in and start re-encoding the biological form with love and light. And so I love and bless your body. Imagine and visualize something that you love in this world. What makes you warm inside? And so we want to imagine that, visualize it, and then consciously wash it over your entire body. And just tell your body it's okay if you got triggered. It is okay. Everyone gets triggered. That's a part of life. If you don't get triggered, then you're a very, very high frequency being. And then you should write a book and let the rest of us know. Cheers. All right. Okay. Let me take a water. Okay, what's the next question? Let me see. What is the difference between density and dimension? Time and space. When we start to talk about density, so you have to realize that everything in the physical reality is density. And so what that looks like is when you start to release the traumas and the trapped emotions inside the physical body, you are actually generating your physical form to raise in density. So density can keep you locked into a physical perspective. Sorry, it's a side thing. Density can keep you locked into a physical perspective. And so what that looks like is you come inside and imagine for 1 second that someone is so full of sadness or trauma or fear that all of a sudden their life is moving very, very slow. And that's okay too, because that's only an experience. So when we start to see that, we know that being sad or having traumas or having emotions that we haven't properly discharged from the physical form, it actually keeps us into a lower density frequency. Now, when that happens and all of a sudden we're not able to actually exceed that density level until that energy of the trauma is removed from the grids. When we start to remove that trauma from the grids, then it shall allow us to raise in density level. So when we speak about hitting or tuning into 5D frequencies, that means that we have done the shadow work and released the density, which then allowed us access into the higher density levels. Now, a dimension is length times width times height. And so any item that we have in the physical world, it has these different types of dimensions to it. That gives us the perception of being in a 3D reality, which is okay too. And so, but when we start to tune into 4D, 4D is for density. 4D is actually overriding time and space. So when we talk about time and space actually allows us access into a very high frequency or a very low frequency. And so when our frequency range is low or our density level is low, time and space may go very, very slowly. And so if you've ever seen someone who was extremely sick, they may have felt like their days had dragged on. That's okay too. Now, the second that we realize this it's this, when we dive inside of ourselves and we start to go through the healing process and we start to really raise our frequency, we're actually raising our density level. Now, there's a difference between vibration and biological frequency. Your vibration is what you hold right now in this moment. That's your emotion that you are radiating. Now, when you radiate that emotion, it always goes 3, 6, 9. So after about 3 days, you're going to make a real impact on how to go about changing your biological frequency if you hold that higher frequency for 3 days. And so anybody can do this. You guys can drop in and you can start doing this every half hour. If you do it a half hour, you're going to see a significant change after 3 days. So every single half hour, set a little alarm on your watch and tell your watch to beep, and then drop into the heart space and try and emit a blast of love from your heart chakra and allow it to radiate out. And so when you start to do that, then all of a sudden, that heart rate chakra, which is a high frequency, it's going to start to wash over your physical form, which in turn is going to start to change your density levels. And so the density levels, you can either raise them or you can lower them. When you raise them, the higher self a lot of the times is going to take its seat in the heart chakra, which then in turn is going to allow you to have access into your highest and best potential. Now, there's different ways of going about doing this. And so when you start to coax forward or manifest your highest potential is always going to be happy. And so you have to be laughing all day. You have to really, really access that high frequential, the star people are saying, you have to really be located consciously in your heart chakra. And so your heart chakra has to open. It flowers open, but it feels like this. And then all of a sudden, it's going to radiate a type of love-based emotion, which all people around you can feel. And so if you guys have ever been around someone who's very spiritual or very clean energetically, it's a sense that we can sense right away. And all the people around you, whether they are conscious to it or not, they will start to respond to this because it is a form of divine alignment. And so whenever we start to see, okay, there's divine alignment, which happens when we open the heart, that means that opening the heart is something that each and every one of us are here to do. Because when we open the heart, there's so many different side effects from doing this one thing. And the biggest one is that we radiate this high frequency of love and bliss. And that frequency, it washes over all the other people, the plants, the animals, the location. It washes over everything. And so when we do that, then all of a sudden we start raising the planet's frequency. Now, the planet's frequency is very, very important that we raise because it has a direct effect on the consciousness of all of the people, not just one or two people. It's everybody, even the people who are physically focused, even the people who are watching the news and doing physically focused activities. We have something known as the 100 monkey effect. Now, the 100 monkey effect is when enough individual consciousness units, which is us, when enough of us raises our consciousness to a certain point, that frequency washes over the human consciousness grids, and then it starts to impact all people on the entire planet. And so then all people are going to start to tune in to that higher frequency, and they're going to start to wake up to whatever knowledge is in the consciousness grid. This works with anything. And so now there's big implications. He's saying implications for this, because the second that individuals know and recognize how to enhance the consciousness of all people on the planet, this is where TV commercials comes into play. Because if you can broadcast a message and you can get it to enough of the people, all people are going to know the information. This is another reason why when we start to look at worldwide things that are done that it brings everybody's attention to, it actually turns into a giant manifestation. So we have to be careful with what information hits the World Wide Web or what information that we are drawing to us. Now, just realize anytime you're on the actual internet, it is a reflection of your frequency. Because a lot of the times we'll have a look at our cell phone And my cell phone, my internet browsing history is completely different than anyone else's. So my cell phone is going to be tailored to my consciousness. That's the way that works. Now, we've sat here with two different people, two different cell phones, and we have Googled or researched or internet browsed the same exact phrase or question, and we've received different answers every single time. Your location also will change your internet answers. So somehow the cell phone knows if you're in New York or Florida or wherever you are. And so we're going to start hitting different web addresses depending on the location that we're in. So that right there goes to show that we each have in a mirror reflection of a piece of our consciousness, and it's just being reflected back. I feel amazing right now. Just been getting real good star people feels. That's good. Excellent. Will the 3D be overrun by reptilians after the ascension? We actually don't really need to worry about the 3D. There's multiple timelines out there. So 3D is going to do what it does. 5D is going to do what it does. Our consciousness is what we need to be concerned with. And so in this very moment, where is my consciousness? Is my consciousness focused on doing the shadow work, releasing my traumas, my densities? Is what is mine going to do? Now, we can't control any of the people around us. So you can't, unfortunately, but you can't worry about what your family and your people are going to do. If they're not ready for the information, that's okay too. You just ever so gently release and continue to focus on yourself. You have to realize when you start focusing on yourself, your frequency raises, and then the people, places, and things around you, those things are either going to raise in frequency to frequency match you at where you've just risen, or they're going to fall out of your life. That's okay too. Unfortunately, but it's one of those things where you have to start focusing on yourself primarily, because when you raise your frequency, then all of a sudden it's going to allow you to express yourself in a much higher light, which is going to assist you in manifesting the soul tribe or the people that you need in order to activate your highest potential. So very, very important. Yeah. Oh, Instagram went out. I don't know why it still says it's live. Oh, it was your internet. Okay, let's see. Okay, why do I breathe in through the mouth? So this person was always shown to breathe in through the nose. Now, when we are doing attachment removals, when we breathe in through the mouth, it's actually forcing the heart chakra to open. Anytime we are doing trauma, anytime you guys get stressed, breathe in through the mouth and just feel it in your chest. Actually, if you guys want to just do it real quick, take a nice deep breath in. You can feel it opening right here in the center of your chest. That's where your heart chakra is. Now, take a nice deep breath in through your nose. Did you still feel it open the same exact way as when you breathed in through your mouth? Not really. Because there's a little bit more. There's different types of breathwork meditations as well. So some of the breathwork meditations is two airs in. So you can either do it with the nose or the mouth, but you breathe, you stop, and then you take a second breath in. And so what it's actually doing is your lungs, it expands, and then it stops, and then it expands the rest of the way. Now, that's key, because if you want to get rid of the most amount of carbon dioxide, the star people are saying, you do the double breath in, and when you push your air out, it's pushing out all of the carbon dioxide. So you're getting more of the carbon dioxide out. Now, there's different breath works, because we can cover one nostril and we could breathe in through one, and then we can cover the other one, and you breathe in through the other. And what this actually does is it causes coherence to happen. So there's a blood-brain barrier in the nose, which is why we are not supposed to put anything up our nose. Zero. Nothing. And so when we start tuning in and just putting air up, now we can see how sensitive it is up there, because when we're taking air from one nostril, it's triggering cohesion to start in this hemisphere of the brain. When we do the opposite one, it's opposite. This is the way the airflow goes. Now, when we start doing this per breath, it's triggering the left and right hemispheres to generate cohesion. So that's a wonderful one to do as well, but that's deep in meditation. Now, some meditations require you to take very short breaths in. You could do it with the nose or the mouth, and they do it like 1,000 times. And what you're doing is you're restricting the airflow. The whole system's come into alignment. And then if you're trying to do things like open the pineal gland and have interactions with your guides or extraterrestrials, that's a wonderful thing to do. There's so many different types of breathwork meditations. So Wim Hof has a great one where you're taking 30 breaths in and then holding your breath for a minute and then a minute and a half. That one actually activates the fight or flight systems, and it starts to rebalance the oxygen as well as the pH levels inside the body, which start to heal you very, very rapidly. So that one's wonderful too. Now, of course, you have to use your intuition to see which one you feel drawn to. It doesn't matter which one, whatever your body is telling you, okay, this is the one we're going to go with. I could do it. I'm not going to faint or pass out, right? You have to take it to your limitations. Now, of course, you should just try. You should try them all, and you should see how you feel. And you shouldn't just try them once. You should try them like 10 times each, right? Doing the breathwork meditation, sometimes it's not comfortable. It's like exercising. You have to actually breathe, right? And so sometimes people are like, I don't want to do this. But you got to force yourself. You use your willpower and you make it happen, because you're going to see some great health benefits and some great spiritual effects. You can actually make your Kundalini channel rise. There's 3 different levels to the energetic grids on the outside as well as the inside of the body. And so different breathwork meditations, especially the one the star people are saying, where you're breathing in and out very rapidly. When you do that, you can actually activate the different levels of the grid, and then you can do castings. And now casting into the different levels of the grid is very simple, because just imagine the first level. We'll take the one on the outside body. The first level is your body. So that's the energy covering that. The second level is your location ring. Your location ring is going to cover all of the locations that your consciousness knows and is aware of. All of the people that your consciousness knows and is aware of is in that location ring. The third ring is the universal ring. So we know about space. And so space and all of that information, different planets, different people, all that stuff is in the universal ring. The second that we get onto a spacecraft and we go into another planet, that planet, it starts pushing into our location ring. So it is not the universal at that point. It's coming in because now we are consciously aware of that place. That's how this works. So when we start to do any type of meditation, we can actually go into the location ring. We can start to program the location ring. We can cast manifestations into the location ring. We can visualize a brand new location, which then in turn is going to start to will itself into our simulation. So everybody, there's a whole thing too, is the earth round or is it flat? And so the star people say it's a simulation. It's both. It is what the person perceiving believes it to be, is what will manifest for each and every one of us. Now that makes complete sense, because the second that we realize, let's say for an example, we knew that there was a building or a restaurant somewhere and we've driven by it every single day. But then all of a sudden, one day, we are driving down the road and we needed this restaurant. We needed it. And then all of a sudden, a brand new one popped up where we know for a fact it wasn't there before. One of my people has seen that happen before. Now, I've seen different things during the timeline convergences in which this bakery popped up. And I mean, I had walked this walk so many times with my kids. And one day this bakery showed up and I was like, that was not there before. Both my kids were like, no, it was not. So things change, they shift. And the bakery looked old. It looked like it was there from like the 30s. So things change and they shift. Nothing is solid. Everything is fluid. Especially when we start tuning into the memory grid complex, it actually gives us the ability to dive in and to make changes to what we know. Now, your memory grid complex is directly impacted by a location ring. And so your binary codex frequency, which is your biological form, that's the frequency range, your location, and your experiential. The experiential frequency is like time and space. So your experiential frequency is going to tell you how old you are, if the bread is old and moldy, or is it brand new. right? So the second that we dive into the heart chakra, there is a slipstream inside of the heart, which is connected to the higher self. Those particles, it's like a tachyon particle, they run above time and space. And so we can dive into the heart chakra and we can start to change or modify. It's just like the time stone from Doctor Strange. We can actually do this. We can cast the experiential frequency and we can change it to either age rewind or age fast forward. Now, of course, this isn't going to happen in day one. We have to sit down and put the conscious focus and attention on enhancing the ability. However, it is a true potential. Now, we do this automatically when we do it with living plants. And what we're doing is we are casting love and light. It makes the plants grow 10 times the original size. This is also true for different forms of technology. So we can utilize different types of earth energy grounding systems or orgonite. And then we have a garden and then electroculture, and it allows the garden to grow 10 times the normal size. If we put copper pipes in the shape of a pyramid and we started to plant all of our plants inside that pyramid, like a little greenhouse, the plants are going to grow 10 times its size as well. This works because it's a vortex energetic. That vortex energetic is a life-giving frequency. So just imagine each one of your chakra systems is a vortex energetic. And so that vortex is radiating life force energy. Life force energy makes us happy and healthy. When your chakra pulses out to the back, it is pulling like a void vortex. So it's like the opposite spin of the vortex. So the earth rotates counterclockwise. The earth rotates clockwise, the star people are saying. And so what that's showing us is clockwise motion is life-giving. Now, when it's counterclockwise, it is life-pulling. However, the star people are saying different magnetisms on the planet change the spin. So they're saying it's like a positive and a negative polarity. So if we have a look at that and we see the equator may potentially reverse the spin of the vortexes and all the people and plants and things. So that happens too. It's okay. So we know that the top of the earth is it's the North Pole, and then we have the South Pole, and we know energy is going through it like a channel. This is the same that happens to the body. And so that energy is magnetic in its nature, and then it branches out like a toroidal field. However, we also have another one of those that's spinning around with electricity. That electricity, it gets radiated from the heart, and then it forms another toroidal field. This forms 4 quadrants. The 4 quadrants can be connected to the Kundalini channels, earth, air, fire, water, which are located inside the body. There is a center Kundalini channel made of light. And then there is a dark matter channel, which is covering the light matter channel. These two run straight through the body. They connect in through the heart chakra and the 0 point. And then they radiate all the way down the rest of the chakras, and then it toroidal fields out. This is how the energetics flow, which is wonderful. So the second that we become aware, the star people are saying our toroidal field is here. This is a 3D toroidal field. And so there's another one on top of us, and there's another one underneath our feet, and it keeps going infinitive. Now, this is also the way the meridians and the ley lines run inside the physical form as well, because there's a bunch of different chakra lines inside the head. Those come down, but they come down like this. It's like a vesica Pisces, which is connected into the flower of life symbol. So when we take a strand of DNA and we slice it in half, we're going to see the flower of life symbol. You guys can research flower of life symbol, and that's going to show you the actual image. Now, if we take the little fish, right, because I think everyone puts a bumper star with the little fish. And so you take that fish, it's actually one of the petals of the flower of life. When we start to look at all the corporations on the planet, it's the flower of life symbol. They just make it slightly different. And so it is what it is. They're using this symbol because they recognize that this symbol is very powerful. And anyone who starts to utilize this symbol, it's like getting drawn into the creation is what that is. And that creation is life-giving frequency. That's why it's in all things. It's even the rocks, the inanimate. We have actually found this symbol has been carved into stones and rocks in many, many, many of the ancient temples as well. So the ancient people knew this information. It was wonderful. Okay, does anybody have any questions? We are doing the shadow work at 5:30. So I figured to give a half-hour break after the live. We're going to end the live at 5. And then we'll give a half-hour break and then do the shadow work Zoom because we missed Thursday. So we'll just dive into the next question. Let me take a sip and hopefully I don't choke this time. Okay, so it's not coffee, it's hot cocoa. So good. With moringa. I think it's moringa. Okay. How do we tap into memories of ancestors to allow access into, let's say, any emotional or extrasensory ability? Now, this is very important because let's say your grandmother was highly intuitive. And many of our grandmothers were. The ones who weren't burned as witches, for an example, they still maintain their intuitiveness. And then all of a sudden, we dive in and we want to understand how to fully unlock it. Now, your intuition, you really have to chill with the electronics, with the television, with all of that digital media, because the color spectrum on the phones and the tablets and such is not anything that you would see in nature. And so nobody really knows the effect of looking at this color spectrum and what it is triggering in the brainwave patterns. When your brainwaves are supposed to be triggering a color that is only found in nature, okay, that's a nature attunement. You are witnessing what you were put here as a biological entity to perceive. But the second that we start looking at all the cartoons and all sorts of colors, that you have to realize every single color is a spectrum of its own. And then all of a sudden, it can do different things or activate different emotions. So we have to realize that there's a difference between green or cartoon green because it's a biological change in the emotion code. Every single thing has an emotion code. All of it. Everything has an emotion code. Even the color, even if you're interacting with a crystal, it's technically an emotion code. Everything is an emotion code. How does it make you feel? How does the crystal make you feel? How does the experience make you feel? It's very important to recognize how each experiences make you feel, because it's during that process of recognizing, oh, okay, I held this crystal and then I felt the sensation X, Y, and Z inside the body. And you could just feel it. Which organs do you feel have more energy inside of them when you were holding the crystal? It usually only takes it less than 1 minute to fully absorb the frequency from the crystal. So even if you go walk around a crystal shop and you touch and you hold it for 1 minute just to see how it makes you feel, many times too, if you're holding on to a lot of density and you pick up a black one, for an example, the black one may crack and shatter in your hands if you're holding on to too much density. If somebody is very sick or ill and you put a piece of quartz in their hand, they may feel the Kundalini channel will activate. That's when all the chakras, let's say they're split out either left or right, they will actually snap back into the center, and then it will allow a rebalancing of the energetics to transpire. This is okay too. Now, a lot of times it's only the beginning stage of healing is realigning the soul inside of the body. That's how this process works. And then you go about, and then you have to continuously do the shadow work. You have to go into the traumas, the emotions. How does your body feel? Because your body is firing off emotions all the time. Every time you're taking a breath in, how does your body feel? And you really have to close your eyes and allow your consciousness to go into the different areas of the body. How does that feel? How does this feel? Everything is a distortion. Every single thing is a distortion. This is a solid fact. So the second that we recognize that it's all a simulation, we are light beings, and then anything that we see that we might not like, even if it's something that needs to be healed, there's an emotion code behind it. And so how does your body feel? Does your body feel like it's 20? If it doesn't feel like it's 20, then that means that you're running a distortion, because the simulation doesn't know any time. Time is out of bounds. It's not real. It's an illusion. It's only a perception. So the second that we can recognize that we can go inside and we can change our emotion codes just by willing it. And so close your eyes and visualize it. How did it feel when you were 20? What did you look like? Can you stop for 1 second, close your eyes, and see yourself in the mirror as a 20-year-old? You could take a photo of you when you're 20, and you could look at it and close your eyes and pretend you're looking in the mirror, and then absorb that emotion code. What you're actually going to start to be doing is you're going to start to download an anti-aged frequency. Because remember, the 20-year-old feels a particular frequency range. So you just know how it made you feel when you were 20 in order to pull at that frequency and then encode that frequency over your entire biological form. The first thing that species tend to do when they go through the process of evolution is heal their bodies very rapidly. And that's because, how does it make you feel? What's the emotion code? So if you knew the emotion code, or you can sense how does it make you feel. Now, the star people personally did this to me when I was going through a healing. And so they made it so that aspect of my body felt normal again. And then it was like, I wasn't able to hold it. So I had to go through the process of going through the whole healing. But I felt what it was like to change the emotion code. And so the emotion code, if you, let's say even your nail, if your nail is super short, how does it feel to have the long nail? It's two different sensations. So the energy is completely different if you have a short nail compared to a long nail. This is only a very basic explanation. It goes 10 levels deeper, because how does it feel to have red hair? How does it feel to have blonde hair? Now, all of a sudden, you could change the feeling of it. When you change the feeling of it, the visual feeling of it, you'll open your eyes, which is another reason why the eyes blink, because it's giving us a chance to shift the perspective. Now, the perspective, unless you're a true master, you can open your eyes and you can see the world shift, but we're not at that level. So we blink and we make shifts during the blink because it's a little easier for the consciousness to manifest. I was totally going to do that, but I'm confused how to make it so I don't take on my consciousness level at that time. Just like the youthful skin organs. Well, you know what? I've seen some crazy stuff happening too, because I know somebody personally who they forgot to put like cheap cream on their face, and then all of a sudden all the wrinkles disappeared when they put the cream on their face. And I was like, it was magic. It was just sheer magic, because the lines should have never been there. And like, when you have an experience like that, you're like, what did you do? You know, and they're like, oh, they love and blessed my face and did that. So it's only a matter of time, because you keep doing that, that it's going to start to heal the body as well. Now, I personally had calluses in the bottom of my feet. And so I took a black pneumite crystal and I started rubbing it, and I started doing it with lotion. I love and bless my feet. And then all of a sudden, all of the pain went away. And then I stopped doing it because I got lazy. But the truth is that it was very painful and I couldn't walk. And then it stopped. So, you know, we have the ability to heal ourselves. It really is all about the focus. So where are you guys spending your focus? If you're spending your focus doing things that aren't educational or aren't beneficial to your body, mind, spirit complex, then you're actually, it's like, it's not really wasting time, but it's not utilizing your time in the most efficient way, the star people are saying. Okay, excellent. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions? We got 10 minutes left, and then we are going to click it off. We are doing the shadow work Zoom at 5:30 today. Excellent. Okay, let's see. Oh, look, I answered so many questions without even looking at them. Okay, the power of love and casting. Now, because we've all been through trauma, and so we're reorganizing that sentence. I personally have walked through an extensive amount of trauma. And this is very important, because when we walk through an extensive amount of trauma, it actually allows us to learn the emotion codes for each trauma. That makes you a very advanced healer when you learn to transmutate the trauma, and then you learn how to absorb the emotion code of how does it feel when you are healed from that trauma, and how does that trauma make you feel when you are not healed. So it's a polarity thing. Now, the second that you are consciously aware of both, you can start to sense the trauma in other people, and then you could start to radiate the frequency to heal the trauma. Now, this is very important because we each do this. We just don't realize that we're doing it. But the second that you become consciously aware, oh, it's a frequency, and I can start to utilize different techniques to blast this healing frequency at people. Yes, 5:30 Eastern. And it also goes hand in hand with the attachments, because the second that we become aware that there are attachments, I don't know if that's any easier. Like the light is like totally blinding. Hopefully you guys can hear me. The second that we become fully aware that there are attachments and we start to recognize each one of the attachments is based on an emotion code. So that emotion code always is going to have something to do with trauma, because the emotion code is, let's take a simple one. I'm not worthy. That's an emotion code. That's something that radiates inside of us. And then all of a sudden we hold that emotion and it messes everything up for us. And so, but the second that we throw the attachment off, say, I'm not worthy, get off, go home, is the second we can start to rebalance that emotion, send it love and light, because it is a door in the energetic grid. We want to always seal that door by sending love and light to the energetics. After we unattach the attachments, we tell them to get off. And then what we do is we salt water bathe and we start to re-encode our grids back to love and light. Now, this is very important that the entire world recognizes this, because the second that we're aware of these attachments, you can sense them when we go into the civilization. Let's say you go into, whatever store you're going into, then you start to sense the traumas that people are running to. Now, when you sense the emotion codes of what other people have running and how dense they may be, it's because you're also sensing their attachments. Now, when we start to raise our frequency, there are just some people that we cannot be around. And when we cannot be around those people, it's because of their emotions as well as the attachments that they have running. So it is okay. Many times in the beginning, and I tell you guys this with the sincerest of hearts, in the beginning, when we step into this knowledge, we run. Everybody runs, because it does not feel good to be around these beings. They are real. They do have language. They have a civilization. They have high technology. They drain your energy. A lot of times they make you yawn or cough because they don't want you to talk when you're clearing out someone else's energetics, or you're tuned into a group energy grid. So anytime we do a live, there's a group energetic grid that forms between every single person watching and me and the star people. And so the star people are doing different sort of frequency adjustments on all of us at one shot. That's how they work. So it's wonderful. There's a lot of times people say that they feel like uplifted and stuff, and that's because they're doing frequency work. So they try and heal us and raise our consciousness, and it really is a blessing. So when we start to realize that we have a perception and we can change the way we cast, and we can start to remove attachments, and there's like so much information pertaining to this alone, because the second that we heal all of the traumas, it changes who we are. So that in itself just goes to show every single person on the planet, if they are negative or toxic, it is because they are just not healed yet. And that's okay too, because they have the right to be who they are in the now moment. We have the right to not judge. And so we don't want to cast, because everything is an energetic casting, we don't want to cast any judgments at people. So if they're not healed, they probably just don't have the tools to heal themselves, or their soul just isn't ready and wants to have the experience of being in that lower frequency range. We just have to be okay and set our boundary rings so that we don't allow people to rock our frequency. Okay, this is very, very important. And many star seeds may have been put into isolation as well. This is a blessing. It starts like a curse, it ends like a blessing. Because the second that you realize, oh, I've been in isolation for so many years, and then you're interacting with outside people and you feel drained right away, and then you realize, okay, this is why I was in isolation. It was so I could raise my frequency to a certain point, because there is going to come a time in which we are called into service. When the higher frequency light workers, and so all you guys watching, when we get called into service, it's going to be time to take all of the knowledge, all of the gifts that we have, all of the energy work, all of the clearing of the attachments, all of this stuff, and really take it to the civilization and start helping all people to learn and understand and go through the wake up process. Now, nobody knows what this is going to look like. They only know the potentials. So what it may potentially look like is what the star people have access to. They do say that we won, and so we do save the planet in the end. It's already in the potentials. It's there, and it's at a high frequency of manifesting. So we really don't have to worry too much, but we do have to do the work. We still have to focus on healing ourselves. When that solar flash comes, the more light that you have in your energetic grids, those light areas are going to be able to absorb extra solar frequencies, which then in turn are going to activate extra sensory abilities. So we want the whole grid needs to be cleaned, right? We want to have as less traumas and tragedies and all that stuff as possible, because we really want to absorb all that frequency so we can fully activate our grids. This is key because we are going to reach 5D in time. 5D is heaven. That's instantaneous manifestation. If you are holding on to any fear, that fear is going to become manifest. So we have to release the fear. When your fight or flight systems are activated, that means that there is fear inside of your body. So you have to go inside of your body and you have to start asking the higher self, what fear am I holding? How do I release it? What is it here to teach me? Why is it here? And start ever so gently having compassion on the body. Compassion will heal your physical body. Laughter is number one because it raises your frequency very rapidly. But you have to go into the traumas, and you have to have compassion for the younger self. And you have to really release all of the fear that we have. That's one of the hardest things to do. And this is another reason why some of the light workers have been through near-death experiences. And this is because we also have to release the fear of death. That's a hard one for many people to do because the fear of death is very real. The physical world is very real as we see it. This life is very real. We have children, we have houses, we have bills, we have all the things here. And so it is very real for us. That's okay too. But we do have to come to a certain place where we do know that our souls are eternal and we are divinely protected, and we have to release the fear to death. There really is no death because your soul pops out of your physical form, and then your soul goes up to 5D, and then there's like a whole school up there. And then what they do is they go through your life review, and they say, okay, well, this is how your life went. These are all the lives that you've touched. These are all the hearts that you've touched. And then these are all the opportunities that you didn't take, which is okay too, but they were still there. That's why they show them to you. And then you go through and it's like, well, what do you want to learn in your next life? Your next life can be in the past or the future. It could be whichever way you want it to be. It doesn't even have to be on Earth. You could pick and choose a different one. So there's a lot of information on this from doing past life regressions. So I would advise anyone who wants more information on that particular topic, go to the library and get past life regression books, because those people interact with that particular material. And so it's good because you can get a little bit of knowledge here, but then if you want more, you could dive in deeper to other topics. Each and every one of us, we are supposed to be taking the information and diving in deep to the other topics. Because when I learn information, or when the star people give us information, that's only a tiny fragment. And then you guys learn from it, and then you expand on it, and then you become a master at one of the things. And then this is how we all learn. This is how we're supposed to work as a collective. Each and every one of us is supposed to come with a knowledge base. So you have to also realize that when you do spend time reading and focus on knowledge, it makes you a knowledge student. And so that knowledge student actually increases your mental IQ. This is very, very important, because when you start to increase a mental IQ, it's going to give you access into foreseeing the future, because intuition and that ability comes from the mental grid. You are seeing it. And so your eyes are here. It's in the pineal. That's a mental ability. Now, your hair holds the magnetism. And so let's say, for an example, you're a happy-go-lucky person. Then you would want your hair to be extra long, because your hair is going to get encoded with that emotion, which then in turn starts to radiate out into the simulation, and it starts to manifest according to what your hair is. So many times when we walk through a trauma, the ladies may cut their hair short. This happens many times. It affects the magnetism. This is another reason why we recommend that all of the men should grow their hair long, just to feel, how does it feel? You should do it at least once in your lifetime. And it should be a minimum of 5 to 10 inches, because with 5 inches, it increases your intuition 1,000-fold. So I know it can be a pain in the tush, but yeah. Okay, so you bleached your hair after trauma. I did the same with mine back in 2019. Your hair holds the emotion. So when I was going through my trauma, my hair looked very dull. it looked lifeless. And how many times have we heard people say that? And then I bleached it, and then when it grew back in, I was in a different environment, and I had made life changes, and it started growing in more vibrant and healthy. Now, we even hear some people discuss having white hairs, and they grew it back the way it was supposed to be. So a lot of times the white in the hair has something to do with copper, I heard. So I actually just got a copper drinking thing. So we'll see how it goes. Okay. If only my mental ability would open or something by now. It takes time, Scott. You have to really, really focus on it. So the more focus that you can spend, even reading a book or even activating one of the senses, that's how you do it. You should get the monoatomic gold too. That's really good. Okay, so we're at 5. We're going to take a half-hour break. Does that learning something, can we watch or can we listen to audiobooks and movies? All of it. And actually, you download frequency codes by each person that you listen to. So let's take, for an example, if you have someone that you put on and that person makes you feel like $1,000,000 and you're listening and you're learning and you feel amazing, you're downloading those emotion codes from that person. So it's an energetic transference. The same exact thing happens with knowledge. Now, if anybody feels depressed or sad, go sit in a library. The library, all of those books that contain knowledge, they're radiating a frequency that it makes it so that your energetics automatically raise when you're in a library. I noticed this because I had 2 little kids and I was dragging butt at one point. And so every time I went to the library, all 3 of us felt so much better. Now, it actually does turn out the knowledge angels are in the library. And so the knowledge angelics, they radiate around where knowledge is. So they are going to swarm the knowledge books. And then when we walk in there, they start to interact with us because we're interacting with the knowledge. That's how that works. It's a blessing. There's different angels. There's different levels of angels. Some of them can actually be seen in the churches, even if, you know, and whatever polarity the church is, it doesn't matter, because the people sitting in the pews in the back, those people are there for spiritual reasons of love and light. And so the angels go into the churches. Whenever you guys feel crummy, you can go into a church. You don't have to listen to the ceremonies, none of that stuff, right? I don't do that either, but you can go into the church and do a meditation during the off period. See how it makes you feel. It's going to actually recharge you, right? Excellent. Anybody who needs the Zoom link to the Shadow Work Zoom, we're starting at 5:30. Just send me a message and I'll get the Zoom to you. You guys have many, many love and blessings, and you have a wonderful day. Excellent.